some point you gotta decide for yourself who you gonna be. Can't let nobody make that decision for you.
I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Another episode of the Circle Club. We got our boy here, the Marvel expert himself, Mr. Framingham, Corey. What's good? How you doing, buddy?
What's good, everybody? Thank you for having me on.
Exactly,
I'm excited.
It's a pleasure to have you
Matt,
back.
what's up? What's going on?
Nothing much. We got some fun stuff we're gonna talk about today, so I'm excited.
Yeah, man. I'm very excited to have Corey on. We did a little dry run, like what? I feel like a month ago. It was in the
Something
Loki.
like that. Yeah, it's like after a Loki, I think.
Yeah, and Corey and I know each other from lacrosse, right?
Yeah, lacrosse that one fateful year I decided to play.
Yeah, same.
Fateful year.
Yeah, man. That was a weird team, but yeah. So we know from there in college, but yeah. So he's a big Marvel guy. So we decided, you know what? Let's hop on this and hear what everyone has to say about these new shows we got going on. But so today we got our little schedule here. So we're gonna talk about Phase 4 a little bit. How we think that's going on. Who's gonna lead this thing? We're gonna talk a little bit about that Spider-Man trailer. There's a lot to talk there.
There is. Yes.
That's gonna be interesting. And what else we got? Oh, so we got what's your favorite movie that's set in high school and your favorite movie set in college? So originally we were talking shows, but then we just said let's talk either or. But before we get in there, let me just make sure everyone can hear you. Carly said there was a little bit of an echo from Corey and Matt.
Whoa. Testing.
My sound good?
How's this sound? Go ahead, guys, talk.
Yo, hello.
How am I sounding?
I think that should sound good now. I think I had two of them on. But, all right, so these are much better. Perfect. All right, so let's jump into it. So we're discussing your favorite college. Actually, let's start with high school. Let's do high school first.
Yeah, start in order.
Exactly. What's your favorite high school movie that is set in high school? Go ahead, Corey.
Movies set in high school.
Yeah.
I got a couple, but I think the one I always wanted to happen was always Project X. Like,
Bro,
I feel like
great movie.
everybody like I know from my high school was so excited when that movie came out. And I remember when I watched that, I was like, dude, I need to go to
Bro,
this.
I couldn't believe that. The thing is, it's based on a real thing. Did you know that?
Yeah, actually, I do. It was in I think it was in California.
Australia.
I looked it up afterwards.
It was
Australia?
Australia?
Oh my
Dude,
god.
you have to watch the interview for that. Like, go on YouTube and search this real project up. This kid's crazy. Like, I can't. Like, he literally cost his parents thousands and thousands of dollars, and he had no regret. He was like, none.
Dude,
Damages,
all I thought when that shit happened was I would love to be there, but I would hate to be the kid who had that house.
100%.
I got one for both of you guys. All right, what if that was you? What if you threw a Project X and it got out of hand like that? How would you handle that?
Truthfully, I think nobody would ever see me again because I come from a foreign family and there ain't no way I'm living. There's no way I'm living. So I might as well just go on my own and see if I can make it. Cause
Move out to Russia.
Yeah, I'm gonna deport myself from this country.
Oh
truthfully.
my god.
Where's your family from?
We would expect.
Oh yeah, so my whole family's from Portugal. So I wish I could go there, but they're just gonna they're gonna track me down.
Yeah.
So I gotta probably go to Argentina or something. I don't know.
What about you, Matt?
Well, that means we'd expect it. Well, to Corey's point, we'd expect him to live out the party as lively as he could. Because you never see him again. That's his last chance to be amongst the people.
Exactly.
For me, bro, funny enough, if I was running the Project X
Yeah.
party, I'd be the first person out on the
Yeah.
EMTs when the ambulance comes, because I would have fucking passed out from anxiety just managing that shit.
Yo, literally.
I threw a party. I threw a party once in college for Halloween. It was the most stressful shit of my life, and I'm like never doing it again.
Yeah.
I'm like
Mm.
watching over people on alcohol and drugs.
Yeah.
Like people just become animals.
Totally.
And it's just like it's fun going to the party,
Yeah.
but like throwing that shit just sucks.
I
Yeah.
attempted a party once, and I shit you not, my power went out 3 times in a row. It
No.
literally was like it was a sign. It was like, yo,
Dude,
you're not meant to
pack
have
that up,
parties.
yeah.
So your parents are outside unplugging the fucking
Yeah, right.
the plug.
Yeah, they were just cutting the cord.
I threw one when I was living in England, and it was a blast. We did like the whole Christmas thing. I was DJing, and it got really out of hand. Where like the cops came a couple of times. Like this is England. Like the cops don't come. Like that's how crazy it was. Like there were just so many people that like, oh, the American kid is throwing a party, and like, so it was like
no.
it already had that rep to it, and like, dude, when I say I'm gonna have to like find the photo and put it here, but there was like just stacks and stacks of cans, like kind of this crate thing people are doing now. People kept stacking beer cans everywhere. And the thing that sucks the most is like you got to clean it up the day after. That's the worst part. That's
course.
the worst part.
Oh,
But if it
yeah.
happened to me,
Did you?
sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, did you have somebody upstairs doing lookout, like shining lanterns, like one if by land, two if by sea,
No, dude, yeah,
for the red coats?
Exactly, yeah. It was like it got to the point where we were like, all right, we just gonna have to kick people out at like 4 a.m, and it is what it is. But if that happened to me, Corey, it's basically the same thing. Like my parents, like, bro, like not. There's just wouldn't happen.
It's a
Wouldn't
wrap.
happen.
It's a wrap.
But all right, Matt,
It's a
that's a
wrap.
good
I
that's a
wouldn't
good
even
one to
think
start
about
out.
doing
Matt, what about you? What would be your college, what would be your high school movie pick? The best movie that's set in high
High
school.
school movie. Oh, the one that I enjoy the most is a John Hughes movie, but one of his lesser known ones. It's called Better Off Dead. It's just like a really goofy movie about this kid that like just gets into really weird situations. He's like kind of awkward and funny, and he causes his own problems. And there's like a daydreaming element that like a lot of like young men would be able to relate to. So just kind of like seeing this dude overcoming like the bullies and like his own like stupidity, and then kind of getting the girl at the end, it was a very fun ride. And I watched it with my dad, so I have that like that emotional attachment. It had me cracking up.
It's so funny in those movies how like they always do that. It's like the nerd ends up with the girl. Like, dude, what reality does that happen? Come on.
Bro, you always finna bully the nerds.
No, I'm just being honest. Like in like 2000.
No, but in the movie the girl is also like kind of weird and quirky, so like it works out.
Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely happens nowadays. Today, I mean, I have a girlfriend, but like, dude, but in the 2000s, like that, it was just so like jockey, nerd, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, very clicky.
Very clicky.
Very clicky.
Well, this movie came out in the 80s, so like you can even
worse.
imagine. Yeah, so
my pick is for a movie or show set in high school is Freaks and Geeks. I don't know if you guys saw that. It's got James Franco's in it, Seth Rogen's in it. And it's basically these kids set in high school, and I think Judd Apatow is the guy who produced it. And it's got like Linda Cardellini, Jason Segel, Busy Phillips is in it, Martin Starr, the kid from he's from Silicon Valley. He's in it. It's just got like Shia LaBeouf's in it at one point, dude. And it's just got like all these cameos. Rashida Jones, Ben Stiller.
Yeah, a lot of
Ben Stiller's in it at one point, dude. I don't know if you watched The Office. The guy who plays Packer, who's like Michael's weird friend.
Oh,
yeah, he's in it, dude. So there's just like mad big celebrity names, and the thing is that's so weird about the show. I think it might be on Netflix. Is they only did one season of it, and it was like huge, and no one knows why they canceled it. But yeah, so that'd be my pick.
That's a good pick. Yeah, it's a classic. I sadly haven't seen it yet, but I'll have to take a look. I heard it was like a cultural reset back in the day. So
yeah, it was like one of those things where it was like ahead of its time. Like They were doing way too much
Mm.
Mhm.
quirky weirdness. Like James Franco was like smoking a cigarette. Like that's really where like a lot of them got found. So, but all
Mm.
right,
Mhm.
Corey. So, what is your favorite movie that is set in college?
Ooh,
Or
favorite
give me a
movie
couple that you
set
like.
in
Go ahead.
college. Uh, a movie set in college. I could give you a TV show
All
set in
right, go
college.
for it.
It's gonna kind of it's gonna follow like similar pathway
Yeah.
here, but I used to watch this all the time. Blue Mountain State, and
Oh
Mm.
fuck.
the funniest thing about Blue Mountain State, actually, for
Yeah.
everybody here, is this Fourth of July. I was in Newport,
Mm.
down at this like just like outdoor bar place, and I run into Sammy the Ram in the bathroom. I got photo evidence of it. So if you
Photo
guys
evidence.
don't
You
believe
took a
me,
photo of him in the
follow
bathroom.
me. Yeah, we
What?
took a photo
That's
in the
so funny.
bathroom because I didn't believe who he was. Me and my friend were like, "You're not Sammy the Ram. Say something." And he literally, I'm not even joking, you guys, just like pulled out a classic Sammy the Ram type of
What?
statement. I was like,
No.
"Yeah, man, this is Sammy the Ram."
Funny.
So I was like, I have to take a picture. And he didn't care at all. It was awesome though. It was hilarious.
That's that's a
That's
good
too
pick.
good. That's one I forgot
Yeah.
about. That's a
Let
pretty
me.
wild pick.
Oh, I watch that all the
I had a
time.
movie pick, but let me pull a TV one out on you. So, the show Greek. So we are talking offline about that one, dude. Greek, like that is just like
Mm-hmm.
it, I don't even know like if you can call it a classic, but like for the time, it felt like that show was so good. You watch it every week. A
Perfect.
lot of funny. There was kind of like that sexual thing you liked back in the 2000s era, like that
Mm-hmm.
tension, funny college kid. And like basically the
Mm-hmm.
premise for anyone who hasn't seen it is like there's this frat and it's like no one respects them on campus. They're kind of the nerdy, or not nerdy, just
Mm.
like losers, like just kind of low life, if you
Mm.
wills. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, and then like there's all like the other like super preppy ones. And so there's this like
Mm-hmm.
girl sorority that they all want to like kind of go after, and the popular girl of that sorority starts to like the guy of the dumpy. I think that's like his name is his name or something like that. But
Mm-hmm.
and so like it becomes like this whole rivalry of like all the different, and then like his best friend ends up in like the preppy group, so they kind of like go back and forth.
Oh
Yeah,
shoot.
I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that in
Mhm.
years. Corey, you said you saw it, right?
Yeah, I used to see it when you said it to me
Yeah.
offline. I was like, "Yo, I haven't heard about that show in so
Yeah, man.
long." What channel was that on? That was on
ABC or something, right?
like ABC
Yeah.
Family. I want to say it was
It's
ABC
actually
Family.
it's on
like,
Hulu
that-
right now. You can watch it on Hulu.
Oh shit.
Yeah, that was a
You-
good one. I used to watch that, and I might have to like just pull
Dude,
that
I'm
up for
telling
good
you,
old
it's on
times, 'cause
Hulu.
it's been years.
You ever and then remember
It's been
the
years.
Plain White Tees? They were like the theme song or something. I can't remember the name, but I remember it was Plain White
Mhm.
Tees.
Oh, it was just a
Yeah,
classic,
man.
like
Just
exactly.
that,
It's right out of
just
that era.
straight from the 2000s, 2010 era, man. What about you, Matt?
Mhm.
I sadly don't have a TV
Yeah.
show, but I'm gonna go with the
All right.
movie. My movie's like a little. It's more recent. But it was actually Pitch Perfect.
Mm,
I don't know why, but like I watched that. It came out just as we graduated high
Yeah.
school. So for me, it was kind of like it was like a sneak preview into like what to expect in college.
this guy
or,
thinks
like,
he's gonna be singing
just
in
kind of
college
selling.
everywhere.
Yeah, well, not even the acapella
Yeah.
part. I think I was more interested in just like the social relationships and the way
Mhm.
people like meet each
Mhm.
other and whatnot. But the acapella was fire. Sadly, I never did acapella in college. Like, I think last week you were talking about taking this Tuesday with the lovely host
Mhm.
Hannah. You guys were talking about like some really things that you wish you could have
Yeah.
done or like you would have stepped out, done more. And I think that's something I wish I could have like tried
Yeah.
out, like some kind of sub stuff. But a fun vibe, and it was super exciting, and it got me like really jazzed to go to college. And I went to college, and I was like, this isn't nearly as cool as the movies made it. But
Dude, for
it's
me, I
still
was
good,
thinking
though.
like for my like movie pick for college is like Accepted, and that was kind of more what I thought college was like. It's like these people don't get accepted by any of these like elite or prestigious schools, so they make up their own college. I think that's
Mm.
Justin Long
my
is in
God.
it, and not Seth Rogen. What's his face?
It's
Hill.
Jonah
Thank
Hill,
you.
baby.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's
And
go.
I thought my college was gonna be more
go.
like that, where it's like you're doing all these different electives, kind of focused in, chilling, smoking weed and stuff,
Yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
My
Carly
God.
said, "I thought college would be more like Monsters University."
Oh
yeah,
my God. It was
yeah,
for
it
some
really was.
people.
What about you,
They can say
Corey?
that.
Was there
That's
something that you wanted to do in
hilarious.
high school or college that you didn't do?
Something that I wanted to do in high school or college, like I really wanted to get on the Real World and then the challenge. Like I really wanted to do that.
That's so funny.
That was like one of my dreams. I'm
What?
like I was like I want to be on the Real World. I feel like I got a great personality for
You
that.
do.
I'm super outgoing.
That's so
I was
funny.
like,
Amazing.
but like I always really wanted to be on the Real World just so I could go to the challenge because I was
That was a great
obsessed with that
show.
show back in the day. Like people still watch the
Yeah.
challenge nowadays, but I'm talking I was an OG challenge person when it was
Ooh.
like Road
Yo,
Rules versus
that's
Real
that.
World. Only
Yes,
the
yes,
only the real ones
bro.
remember. And I used to root for my
Yo,
boy Cedric. He
you're
used to
pulling
be
out, you're
G.
pulling names out the hat right now, dude.
So that used to be what
That's
I
so
wanted to
funny.
really do
I never
so
knew
bad at that
Rogan was the
time
host of
era.
those shows, dude, until like 2 years ago.
Dude,
Just,
I could talk about those shows for days. That's like a whole different
I
that's like
know,
a whole
man.
different
That's wild. That's
segment.
wild. All right, but yeah, so those are some high school and college setting TV shows and movies that we enjoyed. Let us know in the comments below what you think. But yeah, man,
Let us know some of
definitely,
your
definitely.
picks.
But Corey. So obviously, there's a lot going on right now with Marvel. So that's why we pulled you in.
Mhm.
Uh, what are you thinking right
Mhm.
now about What If? Like, how you feeling about that series? How you feeling about Phase 4? I feel like we've got enough TV shows and movies to kind of be like, all right, here's my opinion on Phase 4 so far.
Yeah, so I think we've gotten enough to understand like where the direction's
Yeah.
definitely going, right? Like we kind of had that sense already, but now it's definitely confirmed. You kind of have it across like a couple different properties, the push that they're making there. So it's good to know like kind of where we're
Yep.
trying to go with this, right? I know some of us have talked about it being like the
yeah.
multiverse saga, so to speak. But my thoughts on it, I love it. I was like the kid growing up that was always like, what
Yeah.
if, what if, what if, like, what if I did this,
Yeah.
what if I
Yeah.
did that, right? Like, especially when I was getting in trouble, like, just situations like that. So I love to see these different scenarios. Like example, last week, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched episode 3, you better
Yeah.
mute me now. But just seeing all the Avengers
hmm
die, like, right, and like what happens in that
Yeah.
scenario? Well, guess what? Like Loki literally takes over Earth, right? So it goes to show the thing I love about it is it goes to show how like one choice can really set you on a
Yeah.
different path in life, right? Even personally. So that's what I like about this what if. It's just exploring like these just different possibilities that ultimately I think are coming to fruition because I mean it's happening
Yeah.
right now, you know what I'm saying? Like are they gonna come to live action as well,
That's
some of these themes? So
that's
who
what's
knows? I
interesting.
like it
Like
though.
I remember we talked offline about like, is this What If gonna like connect with the Marvel Cinematic Universe and some of these shows?
Mhm.
One thing Matt said
Mhm.
offline that was interesting to me was he was just saying like, like right now this phase is a lot of individual movies and it's kind of like the big hard reset. Um, the one thing that's
Mhm.
kind of bothering me though with this phase is like I use the analogy of Dragon Ball Z, right? It's like so you love Dragon Ball Z, you know you can trust Dragon Ball Z to be fire, or like Yu-Gi-Oh,
Mhm.
Pokemon, whatever. But it's like every week to be like,
Mhm. Mhm.
cliffhanger, find out next week on Dragon Ball Z. Like I kind of feel like that's what Marvel's doing with us right now.
Mhm.
And to me, my final like straw, and I know we have to just be patient and we can trust them, is like if we don't get anything in Spider-Man or the Eternals, I'm gonna be really ticked off because it's like, dude, you like
Mhm.
we've been kind of stuck in time for quite some time.
Mhm.
Like I think it's time to progress this entire story. You feel what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah, I think like just to
Mm.
quickly point in is that we got to keep in mind that the first 3 phases were 3 phases, kind of talking about one
Yeah.
overarching story. Like the first phase was
Yep.
bringing the team together,
Mhm.
and then from then on was like figuring out, okay, there's some stones that are
Mm-hmm.
floating around in space. What's the whole deal with that? And you got this purple
Mhm.
guy grinning at the
yeah.
camera. Obviously, like
Mhm.
people like Corey knew
Yeah.
knew what was coming, but for the rest of
Mhm.
everybody, you gotta like let that that needs to materialize,
Yeah.
and I think we have the benefit of also understanding like the
Yeah.
business side of things. Like there's a lot of that
Yeah.
information's more public as
Mhm.
opposed to like in the past. So
Mm-hmm.
just as this crazy beautiful decade kind of came to a close, a few people are no longer
Yep.
like in the movies anymore. So you have to come in and reintroduce these characters.
Mm-hmm.
We when we saw Thor for the first time, we saw Tony for the first time, all these characters, we got to just see them and their stories within their small world, and
Mm-hmm.
then it gets big and
Mhm.
then it gets pulled out.
Mm-hmm.
So whereas
Mm-hmm.
Loki, we've seen
Yeah.
his story before, we saw it from a new direction, so we could kind of see the larger stuff with Kang.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler alert, if you haven't watched Loki, you're insane for not doing
Yeah.
it. But so I think like right now, even though we're kind of like a few
Yep.
steps into the phase, I think we still need to be under the mindset of like we're being introduced to new people for the
Mm-hmm.
first time, and they need to breathe
Yep.
before they can
So my
take in the
my
universe.
pushback a little bit on that is, while that is true, it's like you you're kind of forgetting that this whole world is also a character, right? Like this whole world has been set for quite some time. We know the rules of this world. We get the rules of this world, so they don't really need to
Mm-hmm.
do as hard of a reset. I think, like for example, you look at Bucky and Captain America, right? uh, like that did progress the story a little bit, but it also allowed that character to kind of come out of his skin. And I think it almost feels like to me like this reset is like, all right, so Carly has no interest in Marvel, let's say. Like she can start at WandaVision and kind of get back into it. And I get the commercial reason of doing that, but I think for the rest of us who've been around for a decade, how long can we be expected to wait? Because those other movies took 4 or 5 years to kind of go through. So can we expect
Mm-hmm.
this kind of individual movie thing to be 4 years? You know. So
Yeah.
what do you think?
So yeah, here's my. I think you both bring up like
Yeah.
extremely valid points, right? Like I think to talk about Matt's
Hmm.
point that I agree with the most, right? Like there's three phases, right, of like that Infinity Saga. We
Right.
had to go through that initial development, right? A little bit more so development than you probably would see now because it was all just actually starting. Where kind
Yeah.
of to your point, Tyrone, we have a little bit. We already have
Yep.
things built up a little bit, right? But to really move into this direction that you want to go, right? And as we've talked about before, like you need to build up higher stakes. You need to introduce more of these people and not sell them short
Yeah.
at the end of the day, right? The reason why we love so much of the stuff that happened by the end of phase 3 was because we got a lot of the great stuff beforehand, right? Like I think about Game of Thrones and how good they built up those seasons, right? And almost like the disappointment at the end with the rushing
Yeah.
of it all, right? So I think we need to be patient and giving it time to marinate because ultimately, as long as they're in that process of
Hmm.
developing things, giving us new information, pushing it forward, giving us more understanding of
Yeah.
what's kind of going on, while also opening up those questions to bigger possibilities of what is
Hmm.
going to happen,
I
right? That's
agree.
what you
Yeah.
want because ultimately that's the
Hmm.
thing that we all love about the MCU is it's not just these movies that you watch and you bang out and it's like whatever, right? It's like almost even though we have TV shows, actually now it's been more of like a continued story like a TV show. And
Yeah.
we have just now all these different aspects where before when we had these characters in phase 1, 2, and 3, we were really relying on
Yeah.
these movies, right? So
Yes.
I feel more grateful that we have a lot of these
Right.
fillers in between to give us even more context than I think we would have even gotten
Yeah.
before, truthfully. So I don't mind the cliffhangers because it keeps me just interested in the next
Hmm.
property that they're about to release.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think it's the kind of balance of the journey versus the destination. And like
Mhm.
we're gonna
Yep.
get to the destination and like just finding a way to enjoy the journey as we're here.
But
But
I.
Mhm.
at the same
Sorry, go ahead,
time,
Matt. No, I was just
go ahead.
gonna.
I was just gonna try and
Yeah.
like lean towards your point too. Like at the same time, you do kind of want to know where you're going. So we'll
Well,
see
yeah.
how they
So
balance that.
I completely agree with both of you guys as well. And like I said, I'm coming from the perspective of someone who has trusted Marvel for 10 years. But if I don't, if I'm kind of trying to jump into this thing, how am I supposed to really know like where this is heading? And like, all right, everyone talks about Marvel and this big thing. Like, you know, for someone who is kind of still entering this world or fresh, like, what do you guys think? Like, how long? should this be?
So I think it's easy, honestly. I think it's so easy for the people that's just trying to get introduced, right? And I can tell you from just prime time example myself
Mm-hmm.
talking with people that I've gotten into Marvel. Start from the beginning. Like don't start now, right? Like go back to what's already been released. If anything, you have the luxury to have
Mm.
all this content that we throughout the years have
Yep.
waited for, right? Like now it's like starting a TV show that's almost like already
Yeah.
done, you know what I'm saying? You can rip right through it and enjoy it, right? Like you miss out on that 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 emotion that
Yeah.
keeps you on your seat ready for a Wednesday when things are going to drop, right? But at the end of the day, it's less of that in between and you can intake
Mm-hmm.
all that content. And if you do that, now you can enjoy what's to come, right? At the end of the day. So I think that's the piece of advice I would
Yeah.
have for anybody new is
Yeah.
start where
Yeah.
we start,
I
right
agree.
from
I
the
think
start.
that's great. I think that's
I think
great
that's
advice. And
perfectly
like,
said.
don't try to catch up with everyone now. It's like you'll get there. Like, so someone commented, Tabby FG said the thing
Mhm.
is that trying to create a love for a character in a single series or movie is a gamble. Marvel is looking for more emotional, long-term connection with the characters. For
Yeah, she
example,
nailed it.
Petro and Wanda, where they introduced in a very superficial way, and WandaVision was a show that you need to create that emotion. And I think that's a
Correct.
great point.
Mhm.
It's like,
Totally.
that, and so, it's funny, like, you probably want to be a part of it, and it's like, with Game of Thrones, it was like so many people jumped into it, but this might just be something that you have to kind of start at number one, recognize that it was set during a different time, there's different pacing, different technology, and slowly make your way up, and like, you just gotta trust. If you like that first one even slightly, trust that it'll be worth it in the end.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think the Marvel
Mhm.
universe is the MCU is the most accessible it's ever been with Disney Plus.
Yeah. And I think too, like the emotion that we got out of like an Endgame or an Infinity War, right, was like so epic that
Yeah.
like you don't want to just come in, pop in, and just watch Infinity War without having
No.
all the other prior content,
No.
right? It's not gonna have the same impact. Like you can
Yeah.
watch those movies like without having watched the other ones, and you probably think it's a good movie. But like
Yeah.
if you want to feel what everyone else felt and what the intention behind the creation of the movie was meant to do, you
Yeah.
got to start it from the beginning.
Yeah, I saw this girl, like, she was like watching a TikTok, and like, obviously we had the pandemic and people were stuck inside. So this guy, I think you might have sent it to me. He like watched it with his sisters, and like, dude, to see her go from like Iron Man to like that moment where Captain America like pulls like the Thor
Mm.
hammer, like, she just like, her
Yeah.
face, she goes, oh my god. And it's
Oh
funny
my
because
god.
like, if you see it, like, when she first watched the first one, like, she wasn't nearly as invested. She was kind of like, oh, this is a movie, and like, it
Yeah.
always, like, the payoff is like completely worth it, and this just isn't one of those things where you can try to jump in. But let me ask you guys both a quick follow-up. Is there one movie, because the one that I'm thinking of is Black Panther, that you think can stand alone on its own, you could watch having never seen anything else? Is there a movie? Is there a movie or a series in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Matt, why don't you go first?
Marvel. That's like it's tough because there's so many good ones, and I've been watching a bunch of them recently. The first one that comes to mind is just Iron Man 1. Like that's just where the beginning is.
That's a
Robert
cop
Downey
out.
It is a cop out. All right, fine. The sequels,
well, because obviously the
probably-
first one's gonna be,
Yeah. I don't know, man. I'd probably have to say like Guardians of the Galaxy. It's not my favorite out of the series, but
Okay, yeah.
it's just it's indicative of like where they were at that time. That's when they got fun and wacky, and it's just like you got the music, you got the characters, and it's just a fun vibe.
I like that answer a lot. Tabby also agrees with you. What about you?
Swag.
You could choose
That
the
was
same one. Yeah.
that was literally my exact answer.
Yeah.
To me, this
Yeah.
why just I'll give like a little bit more of a why behind it, right? Like I
Yeah.
think the reason why is because it was just such a more unique group of individuals, right? It wasn't as well known as everybody else. Like you hear Iron Man, and even though Iron Man wasn't as A-list as he is now from the fame of this, like you knew who Iron Man was. You know who
Yeah.
like Wolverine and the X-Men and all these guys. But
Yeah.
like Guardians of the Galaxy, even for myself, was kind of like something newer to me.
Definitely.
So when it first came out, I think the movie itself just is like a quality movie. Like it could be non-Marvel and just be a solid just random
Sci-fi. Yeah,
sci-fi
yeah,
stuff,
sure.
you know what I'm
And
saying?
then
So
Matt, you talked about with me as well, like the soundtrack in that as well.
Yeah, no, the
Yeah.
soundtrack. It's just it can bring in old people because like my
Mm-hmm.
parents grew up with that kind of music, but then even like for people like me, I'm like, yo, this music's like kind of fire, and the way
Yeah,
they
yeah,
blend
yeah.
it in, it like really gets with the
Mhm.
vibe. So there, it connects to you multi-layered, both
Mm-hmm.
through like the comedy as well as musically.
Was it you who said that you would have liked? I don't know if this is like one of your what ifs or something, but like maybe I can ask you guys. It was like someone said something like, why does Star Lord not like go and listen to other music and stuff? Like he only listens to music from this one era. Like once he goes back to Earth, like why does he not listen
Mm.
to other music? So I guess one of my what ifs, if what if Star Lord came back to Earth today, what album would you want him to listen to?
Oh shit, that's a
Um,
really good question.
what album would I want him to listen to, or what album would I think he'd listen to?
That's a good
I feel
one.
like
Go ahead.
I feel like he'd be some like Macklemore type, honestly. Like
Macklemore.
I just
That's
feel
good.
like
That's a good one.
that's who Star Lord would be.
Oh
If I
god.
had to tell him who to listen to, I
Yeah.
just have so much loyalty to my boy. I would have to show him Drizzy. Just have to.
Drizzy.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
He was like dun dun
OVO.
dun 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 like
Team
yeah.
team team Drizzy over Yee. I know you had that conversation the other
Oh
No.
yeah, yeah.
No.
Oh man,
That's a
what
funny thing.
we're gonna have to get into that when those two albums drop. What about you, Matt?
I'd say I know who you gonna answer with. I have like a
Oh
hunch,
really?
but I
I
don't
got
know.
a random one.
I try and fit him within like his genre or this or something adjacent to it.
Yeah.
I feel like Paramore would be something like punk
That's
is like
so
the punk rock
funny.
is like another step
Yeah,
away. It's
yeah.
like kind of like just
Yeah.
off of what he was listening to, but I think you
Yeah.
could vibe with Paramore.
That's funny. Like I was kind of thinking in that world, but I was gonna say I could. It's a weird answer, but I feel like you listen to like Fergie or like Fergalicious or like the Black Eyed Peas. You know?
Fergie.
day.
Oh
Yeah,
my
like
gosh.
I could see a scene
That'd be
where he's
funny.
like listening to
Like
I could see that,
Fergalicious.
yeah.
Outcast, something like that. Something like
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
god. Wait, I could see that. I could see they're like in the ship. It's like boom, boom, boom. Gotta
Yeah, yeah,
get
yeah,
that.
exactly. Yeah, so that was my
yeah,
answer.
That's too. That's a good
Um,
that's a
one.
good one.
oh, so someone said in the chat they said gorillas would be cool for a more surrealistic scene in the movie. That
Oh
would be
my
dope.
god,
That
that
would
would
be
be
sweet.
thematically perfect.
Mm,
Yeah. All right. Sorry, I know I kind of
that'd
threw
be
you
so
guys off,
sweet.
but all right. Anyone in the comments, let us know what song you think Star Lord would listen to if he were here today. Um, so this other thing happened. A little thing happened in the Marvel world. We
Nothing
got
big, nothing
yeah,
crazy.
like crazy. So Spider-Man dropped. What were your guys' thoughts on that? What were some of your concerns? We talked a whole ton about it offline.
we gotta
So
we gotta start with the expert. What were your thoughts, Corey?
yeah,
I mean, I was excited, obviously, because some of
yep.
the rumors have been confirmed to this point. Like, example for me, like I was really excited to want to see like an Alfred Molina as Doc Ock,
Mm.
William Defoe as Green Goblin, because I just
Oh,
feel like
love
they
him,
did those roles so perfectly at the end
dude.
of the day. But this is my thought, honestly. I feel like a lot of these trailers aren't really the true like plot when they show it to us. Right? I think they're
Mm.
trying to mislead us a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Can
I
I
feel like
can
a
I ask you a
lot of
question real quick?
yeah. Go ahead. Go
You
ahead.
and Matt, because you guys are both Star Wars people too. So I feel like the original Spider-Man trilogy kind of gets a bad rep, kind of like the prequels almost. Like, what is that about? Like, why do people look back at those? Like now, it's like, oh, everyone's nostalgic. Like, oh, Tobey Maguire is gonna be with Tom Holland, and they're all like excited. But what is that? Like, why was there this kind of like bad taste in people's mouth? Do you guys think?
Um, I think for Star Wars, because I like
Mm-hmm.
just to comment on the Star Wars, because I'm
Go
like
ahead.
OD with this type of stuff that I've looked into.
Yeah.
A lot of it to me just comes down to just like not willing to embrace new. You know what I'm saying? A lot of it is like the older generation who like
Mm-hmm.
grew up with Star Wars and they felt like everything that was beyond what they had saw was just like was dirt, like, and you can't change their mind, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like it comes from like that generation. Like it's like my dad's generation. I've talked about this with a lot of people with people from that era.
Yeah.
I think it's like the baby boomers have this very like set in
Close to the
their
chest.
ways,
Yeah.
close to the chest, like very loyal. So I
Yeah.
feel like I feel like to them it's like it's the original Star Wars and that's it. They shouldn't even make them. Like I know my dad was a huge original Star Wars guy and hasn't even like watched like the newest ones
Mm.
that have
That's
come
so
out
funny.
because he just is over it.
Matt,
But
what about you?
yeah,
I know you're a
that's what I.
big prequel guy too.
Oh, I love the prequels. That's kind of like when I watched the original
Actually, let
trilogy
me ask you
first.
something slightly different. So, you and I have had conversation in the past where
Oh
where
God,
you've been kind of
we're
like
pivoting.
not to put you on the spot, but like you've been kind of like, oh no, the prequels aren't great, blah blah blah.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
had this flip. So like, what was that moment where you had that flip? Yeah.
Um, I think it's kind of just being like honest with myself
Mm,
and just being like, I enjoy this and I don't really care why. And I kind of
yeah.
went back and I've been meaning to watch the other, like go back like deeper and fully embrace the prequels.
Yeah.
I rewatched Phantom Menace like a few months ago and I texted you that
Yeah.
night. And I rewatched it. I was going to. I'm like, hey, I'm just gonna take this movie in for what it is, and just because people say it's confusing, there's a bunch of other issues.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the movie. And I'm like, this is a very fun movie.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what are people's issues with it? And I
Mm-hmm.
and it just it becomes like it's fun to pile on and it's fun to meme
Yep.
stuff. And I've been meaning to go back to the other ones, but when I was putting together like a list of like thinking about like my favorite Star Wars
Yep.
movies, like A New Hope or like Empire Strikes Back, like those are the ones that are always at the top. And I love those movies, but I decided I was like, nah, if I could watch a Star Wars movie every day, like only for the rest of my life, it would be Revenge of the Sith.
Oh,
I'm
no
like that
Mm-hmm.
question.
movie is just like
No
the
question.
pinnacle for me. Because like that was the height of my
Yeah.
interest in that franchise. And
Yeah.
not that it's waned at all, but like that was like peak Star Wars for
Totally.
me.
The thing that always hurt
Mm.
my heart was as a kid, like so I was like dude, first off, I got to give Matt his flowers. Matt was making Star Wars, Lego Star Wars before it was even a thing. This guy, dude, he was in like the YouTube videos back when we were in like 7th, 8th grade. Like, this dude's been like pioneer. So let me give this guy his flowers. But so
Oh my god.
I didn't know.
I created stop
Yeah,
motion. It was me. It
yeah,
was
it
all
was.
me.
And then, but no. So the thing that kind of irked me a little bit as a kid watching the prequels was excuse me, not the prequels. Was actually the originals because I heard all this lore about Yoda and like Yoda's so badass, and I'm like, where's Yoda? Where's Yoda? He just never shows up. And then when he finally does, it's like a second. I was like, dude, that itself almost completely turned me off from the entire series
So
as a kid. Yeah.
yeah, so the thing I think about the original, like, this is where my difference
Mm-hmm.
is, because I love the prequels, I love the sequels, and I'll bring this back to the Spider-Man and where this all
Sure.
started in
Yeah.
our conversation. Um, but I think the thing about the originals is there's so many like just actual like life lessons when you're in there. Right? Like if you listen to
Yeah.
Yoda and Yoda spots, like he actually is spitting some real knowledge. Like if you interpret
Matt
it right,
knows.
and I
I use the
think
gifts every week.
and I think I think a lot of just what the original Star Wars that's so great is it sets the tone for I think the true what Star Wars is really supposed to be
Mm-hmm.
about and what George Lucas really saw. And the thing I loved about the prequels was like that's what I actually grew up
Yeah.
on. And that's what I started on. So that's what I like I didn't see the originals first. I saw the prequels
Mm.
first as a kid, right?
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I got to see that story develop, which to me is a big reason why I feel like the OG people don't really like it because it takes away from like this the Darth Vader being this big bad guy when you see like this little kid coming up. But the technology that they had for the prequels was obviously way better than the
Yeah.
OGs, and it kind of gave you more of a glimpse into how I think George really wanted it to
Yeah.
be, right?
Yes.
So that's what I really like about the prequels is George finally got to I think really show it the way he wanted to show it. And where Spider-Man comes in and I think Spider-Man at the time when Toby was
Mm-hmm.
there, 1 and 2 are arguably the greatest superhero movies that ever got made at the time.
Yeah. At the time, for
Um
Yes.
sure. Yeah.
and if you watch those are elite movies. And I think the thing about Toby is I think Toby was a really great Spider-Man, but not an actual great Peter Parker at the
Yes.
end of the day.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
Hmm.
and it's because of like what Tabby says in there, like he's an older guy at the end of the day. Like he doesn't
Very
actually
true.
represent what Peter Parker is. And I think the biggest thing about Tom Holland, I think why a lot of people love Tom Holland and why I lean more towards these Tom Holland movies and the Tobey
Yeah.
movies is because he, I think, is a perfect representation of Peter Parker, the person, and who he's supposed
Yeah.
to be, as well as Spider-Man, right?
That's
Even though in
Mm,
reality, I think the first and
yeah.
second Tobey movies might realistically stand alone be better Spider-Man
Yeah.
movies,
yeah,
but I think Tom Holland just nails Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and the movies themselves have the graphic ability to really get into what I think you want to
that
see.
is true.
Well, one thing
So,
I noticed
Yeah.
that I thought was cool with Tom Holland was like, or no, I think was it Garfield? We actually had like the gadget on to shoot webs. Was that
mhm,
Garfield?
Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah. So I thought that was cool, but for me, I kind of had this similar thing where I was like, I wasn't believing him as Spider Man. Like, what like I didn't even watch the second Garfield one because it didn't work for me in that
mhm,
same kind of sense. And with Toby, it was like, well, that was all we had. So like as a kid, you loved it.
mhm,
You were like, you know what? Even though he's
Yeah.
30, it
mhm.
didn't matter because like first off, at the time, dude, I was like 12, 13. Like I didn't even know what a high school kid looks like. So I'm like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm like, it,
Yeah. And they all kind of were, back in the day, they were all 30-year-olds playing
yeah,
kids.
exactly. So
So
it
it was
was
just weird. Everywhere you
yeah. So
looked,
I was
like,
kind of like, oh yeah, he's in high school, whatever. But it was funny because like you look at back, you're like, how does he jump from being in high school to like an adult in like the same movie? That's kind of that would never happen nowadays.
yeah.
Mhm.
And we also you made a really
No.
good point, and I think it's something that a lot of people don't recognize. But so I have a film background, and like there's this storytelling that's done today where now you get a lot of like the background of the characters, who they are, who they were. But there was a time in storytelling where a lot of that was left up for interpretation, and a lot of that was like going back to the Star Wars thing for a second. Like in the originals, there was a lot of like lore behind who Yoda might be, and he's just this wise person, and you just
Yeah.
know he was, like
Mhm.
you just felt it. Whereas nowadays, you can't
Mhm.
really have this character who's like, oh, they're just super OP. Um, this character who's like super OP and like has this background. Like for example, like Wanda, you're like, why do we believe that Wanda is as strong as she is? Like we haven't seen anything. Like why do we supposed to, So
Mhm.
it's just a different storytelling method, and I think that's just something we're kind of used to nowadays. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think in regards to like to kind of like defend, not really defend, but to talk more about the Toby series, is I've kind of gone back and forth with this over the years, but uh, I personally think that Toby Maguire plays a better overall, like not necessarily kid Peter Parker, but like a better Peter Parker as like his own individual person. I enjoy like Tom Holland's quirkiness as a kid. In his the quirkiness he's able to translate as both Peter Parker as well as like him being Spider-Man.
Mhm.
But I think that because of the way Spider-Man was introduced in the MCU is like now it's gotten to the point where it feels a little too directly tied to like Tony Stark.
yeah,
Whereas like Tobey Maguire's character, he felt more like a hero to me, overcoming like villains that actually existed in the world and that some of them that like he directly caused, as opposed to the last two Spider-Man movies of people that just had beef with Tony Stark.
but
Yeah, I mean to what you're saying though, I think, and this is the advantage of having Tom Holland as Spider-Man, right? Is like he's actually young, right? Like you can
Yeah.
develop him over
yeah,
such a longer period of time than you ever could have done with like Toby or
yeah,
Garfield, right? And I think the MCU and obviously the partnership that they have with Sony, because we got to remember too, like eventually what's going to happen is Tom Holland is going to be in the MCU and this Sonyverse, right? So he's going to be in
Yes.
a lot of
yeah,
different movies. So I think the thing we never wanted was to see exactly how he got it. Like we know he got
right,
bit by a spider. Like we
right,
don't need to see. Right, we know
Yeah,
Uncle
yeah.
Ben died. Like we don't need to see that, right? But I think the thing you needed was somebody there to guide him, and it makes sense in this frame of
yeah,
the MCU. And I don't think you can start him with all these big bads because you need to see that progression from him going from this little neighborhood Spider-Man to, as you see it, like you're now an Avenger, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
that
yeah,
moment
yeah.
that he
yeah,
gets excited, right? Like now the stakes are gonna keep anteing, right? We'll see if we'll get like the Sinister Six at the end
hmm
of this movie, and it'll
Mm,
show that the levels that he can go. But that's what I think is great about the MCU. It's the development, how these characters build, where they get to, and what makes that journey so awesome. Because when he finally faces that big person, you
Yeah.
know he's ready for it. You know he can.
All right, let me try to get us back on track a little bit here because we are heading towards the end here. Just real quick, like, what did you guys think about just the trailer? Your expectations for this movie? What are your concerns? What are your like those? Give me those quick reactions that you had after seeing the trailer. Matt, we haven't heard from you. What do you think?
Oh, well, I think with quick reactions, I was excited to see the legacy characters hinted at. Obviously Doc Ock being there is like
Yeah.
fucking crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I love me some Doctor Strange. So anytime he's got screen time and he's moving his hands around doing fun magic, like I'm excited. I'm not necessarily worried about the movie. I'm just worried about people's
Definitely.
expectations. Like I've already scrolled through a few TikToks of people like saying some wild shit. Like somebody literally thinks that Doctor Strange is actually
Oh
Mephisto
my
in
god.
disguise, and I'm like, I can't deal with
Jeez,
this
yeah.
anymore. I'm like, I
That's
can't do
horrible.
this. So, I'm setting my own expectations. I'm just gonna kind of go in with
Yep.
what they give me. Nothing too insane, but I'm worried for the disappointment that others are gonna feel, but not worried in the sense where I actually
Like,
care.
yeah, I kind of, yeah,
They
like,
could be
I mean,
bad.
I kind of was talking to you guys about this offline where I was like, I don't know if I need another trailer. Like, Corey, to your point, it's like there's certain things
Yeah,
you know about Spider-Man that you're like, I don't need. Like, I don't want the trailer to spoil anything. I want this to be fresh. Like to me, I would almost rather be disappointed go
Mm-hmm.
in and the other Spider-Man just be kind of like cameos when he's visiting the different universes, rather than me seeing a scene
Mm-hmm.
where they all meet on a trailer and then like something doesn't happen. You know what
Yeah.
I
yeah,
mean? Like we all know there's no need
Yeah.
to
yeah.
show us anything in the trailer. We all know there's been buzz around this. Either you guys are
Yeah.
gonna disappoint us or you're not. So don't even show us.
Yeah. So this is honestly, this is something that I really am hoping
Mm-hmm.
for, okay? I don't have any expectations, honestly. I'm going
Yeah.
in with blank slate, but I would love to see this happen. I think coming into this movie, right? I think we know like obviously Doc Ock, Green Goblin are coming from these other
Mm-hmm.
universes, right? But like to me it's like are these characters beyond this movie going to
Mm.
stay, or is this just kind of like that one shot they come in and then they
Yeah.
somehow get sent back,
They get
right?
poofed.
Because at the end of the day, these are big time characters, right? Like they are going to want to bring in a Doc Ock and a Green Goblin. So are they just bringing Alfred
Yeah.
Molina and William Defoe to come back to just
Do
be
they?
them? And they're somehow going to find their
But
way back here and stay in this universe, or
does
they're going to be completely different
but does
ones, you
Disney
know?
own the rights to those characters?
They don't. But
But
that's
they,
my but this is the thing though, like this is where it comes down to the Sony verse and
Mm-hmm.
things like that, right? Is like is Sony gonna keep them around, right?
yeah, I think that's a good point because, like you said before, there's going to be Spider-Man movies happening outside of the MCU. So, do those characters
Wait,
get brought along? Like, if there's
you're
another,
telling me that Tom Holland is gonna show up in this Venom universe that they got going on? That would
I a
that would
thousand
be
percent. I
that
yeah,
would
think
be
he
the
will.
he
biggest
has to. He
disaster
has to.
to ever
A
happen in
thousand.
film ever. I mean, talk about confusing two completely different fan bases. Not sure what's going on. If I were
Mm,
Disney, I would honestly sue because I'd be like, you guys are fucking with our story that we have going on over here. Like, I get they own the character, but dude,
mm.
how confusing is that to people? Where you take this one character over here and like, oh wait, why does Iron Man not show up in there? Like, why why wouldn't they just go and find another Spider-Man and like separate the thing and have
I think that would confuse them even more. I think that's
I
what
think
this
I
whole.
think
I think this whole weird time thing, multiverse stuff, opens the door for that seamless transition.
I mean, yeah, I think I mean at some point, I mean like think about it with the multiverse and all this stuff, if Sony and Disney needed to break things off, you could easily just have Spider-Man just jump through a little alternate universe and he just goes from MCU to the Sonyverse. And at the end of the day though, it goes back to
yeah,
business, right? Like we
God,
talked
yeah.
about and a point I think
Mm.
we'll make up later on. Sony wants to build out this Spider-Verse, right? You can't build out a Spider-Verse without a Spider-Man. At the end of the day, everyone's going to watch these movies and everyone's going to be thinking, "Okay, when
Right.
is Spider-Man coming in? When is Spider-Man coming?
Yeah.
When is Spider-Man coming in? And it's gonna happen. So that's why it's
Awful.
a certainty. It'll
Awful. Worst
eventually
thing I've
happen.
ever heard. You ruined my fucking Thursday. Thank you. Um,
Sorry,
Man, shut,
I'm
bro.
just a
I
real.
want to see Venom. I want to see
bro, no,
Venom and
you
Spider-Man.
don't. You
It'll
don't
be
want to see
fine.
that. Get out of here.
Yes, I did. Don't tell me. Don't tell me what I want to
Listen,
see and what I don't want to see. I'm seeing Carnage, bro.
listen,
That shit's gonna be
listen.
hype.
You're telling.
Trying to see the battle of the symbiotes.
We'll get into that offline, man. Listen, all I'm gonna say, dude, is what happens when Sony decides, you know what, I'm not giving you guys Spider-Man. Then we don't have Spider-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's why I don't want it, because I'm like, if they take Tom Holland, first off, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if Drizzy's on an album, right, you're gonna listen to it, are you not? So if Tom Holland, everyone likes him, Marvel is writing the story, they build him up, Sony puts him over there, you're gonna go watch it, right? So then why would Sony ever
obviously.
get it back to Disney?
They'll
That's
never
why I
give
was
it
saying,
back to
like,
Disney.
dude, you can't root for this. I'm telling you, like, we will never get Spider-Man again in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's gonna be so weird. It's gonna be so weird.
Wait. So your worry is that if Spider-Man is Tom Holland's in a movie that's not directly tied to Disney and people watching it does well at the box office,
Yes.
Sony's gonna be like, well,
Yeah.
we don't need you anymore.
But
Oh.
I think this is the thing though,
Yeah.
and just to keep it quick, it always goes back to the fans. And the last time that Sony tried to break off, the fans lost their shit, and
It's
they
too powerful.
forced
You're
it.
gonna watch Venom and Spider-Man. You're going to.
I'm gonna watch it.
There's no reason why would they bring
watch
Venom in if they
Exactly.
weren't gonna use Spider-Man. He's a Spider-Man character. They're making a Mobius movie, which like no one fucking knows about Mobius.
Yeah.
It's the setup,
totally
bro.
gonna happen. Yeah,
It's
it's
gonna
Disney
happen.
screwed. If I'm Disney, I'm not too happy about that. But, all right. One last quick thing we'll jump into is who do you guys think is gonna take over the Avengers as the leader, and who do you want to take over? So we talked about,
thinking, Corey?
Black Panther was supposed to be. Obviously, that's not going to happen. We talked about Spider-Man was supposed to be. Obviously, that's not going to happen with Sony. So who is going to be this person?
Yeah, you guys want me to go first? I'll go first.
I don't really hear you right now. Let's.
Yeah, so I think the logical. I mean, I'll give you some points as to why I think this person could be it, and some counterpoints as to why they might not be it. So I think as of right now, with the cards laid on the table, I would have to lean towards Doctor Strange, just because with this whole multiverse direction that we're going, you're gonna need somebody powerful that can deal with those type of threats, I think, and who is more familiar with those type of threats, right? And I know even in the trailer, he even talks about how we don't really know a lot about the multiverse, but you're gonna need somebody that can almost like fight against threats from there, right? And I think Doctor Strange is that person, and Doctor Strange is that person that everyone's gonna kind of have to get behind because they're gonna need him to deal with the thing that's going on, right? To that point, though, he has a lot of responsibility on him being the Sorcerer Supreme with all these threats going on. Can he take charge of a team while all this is going on?
I have a theory. It's kind of a two-parter. But Matt, do you want to go? Sorry, I know what you're about. Okay.
No, you go
so
ahead,
I kind of have a theory here. So there's a big parallel that you see between Tony Stark and Iron Man, and like a lot of people when we watched this were like, why would Iron Man do that in the trailer? Like, I mean, not so. Why would Doctor Strange do that in the trailer? Like, it seems very irresponsible. But if you look at his movies and his major decisions, everything he does is irresponsible because he's super arrogant. He's always trying to push his limits. He's always trying to push himself. And it's kind of the same thing like Tony Stark. Now, my second part of that is, what is Doctor Strange's power? It's ultimately like kind of magic, right? And like this like mystical thing. They're gonna start so once we get past this phase, I'm just thinking long term. Once we get past this phase, we're gonna start entering the magic and mystical world where we got vampires. We got Corey, who were we talking about? Ghost Rider. These type of magical devil creatures,
Moon
right? So
Knight,
that's why I feel like Doctor Strange is the best person, because at some point, once we start to get into the world of magic, like humans aren't gonna really have that much, that they can do. Like a punch from Tom Holland isn't gonna cut it. So, yeah, yeah.
That's a good way of putting it.
Any thoughts on that?
Corey, who would you want to be the leader of the Avengers?
Who do I
Ideally.
want? Spider-Man for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, in reality, I wanted to. I mean, I really like as of right now, who do I think was the most ready? It was obviously T'Challa. So I'm pissed. Like, obviously, that situation sucks because I think he would have been perfect for it. But I think there's like a lot of like wicked outliers out there that probably aren't like who anybody would think of. Might not
Yeah.
actually even be it, but nobody even is talking about. So I got a
Go
couple
ahead.
of names I'm gonna throw out of people we already know about and
Yep.
people who are to come. I think,
Let's hear it.
opinion.
Ooh.
So, two names. Smart Hulk, right? And not a lot
That's
of people aren't
true.
talking about Hulk.
That's true. That's
That
a
on
good one.
the team, he's smart. He
Mm-hmm.
still has his strength. I guarantee it. I think he brings a lot of that, veteran leadership.
Yeah,
KG to
big time,
Celtics
big time.
07, Um,
You're talking,
so
bro. You and Corey.
so
Hold on, Corey.
legitimately pun
You and
intended
Corey,
on the
you and
bleed
Matt,
green.
I swear to God, you guys might be like brothers from like a different universe. Cause like, dude, Matt is like Star Wars'd up, Marveled up. KG is this guy's favorite player of all time. Like,
He gave me a Kevin Garnett
I
Hall of
know,
Fame
dude.
shirt
It's
last
just
time I
funny.
saw him.
It's
I
funny.
have it downstairs. I'll wear it next
Wow.
time.
Wow. So yeah, Smart Hulk is one of them. There's somebody else nobody's talking about. Teaser for that again. Nobody's
Oh,
talking about
let me guess.
Nick Fury. What about Nick Fury?
Oh, true.
Build up the team again, right?
He put
Yeah.
them together.
Yeah. So I think it would be a great time to bring Nick Fury back in to kind of pseudo lead that team until somebody like a Tony Stark can take that mantle and really guide them forward with at the point where I think we're organizing, right? It's that first phase. We're developing,
Yes.
we're organizing. I
Yep.
think Nick Fury's that great person because as of what we know already from Captain Marvel and
That's what I
also
was just gonna
from
say.
WandaVision, he's up. Captain Marvel, he's up in space, right? Like he's probably doing a lot of the sword stuff up in the galaxy,
Yep.
and he just called up Monica too, right? So I think
Yes.
Nick Fury's gonna pull a lot of these strings, and there's a chance that he kind of does what he originally done in phase one.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, I'll keep it really short on these two, but
Yep.
two new characters that might come. Reed Richards, very
Oh,
obvious reasons
yes.
there from Fantastic Four, and Fantastic Four is the last movie to end the first phase, so it'd be a
Yeah.
great time
that is
start
true.
start
Might-
having
might-
him come in.
It might be a little tricky to pull off, but he is a good pick. Just because like you said, like there's so many established. Like one person Tabby said in the comments was Falcon, like or Captain America now. That's one that a lot of people aren't thinking of in their back pocket too. And then like we just saw in What If, like Nick Fury's got some skills that we haven't really shown on display. Matt, what do you got anything on that? What do you think?
I think, damn man, I didn't even consider the Reed Richards thing. I think that's a really good pick about a future Avengers leader. I saw a photo. I don't know because I know you guys mentioned last time like John Krasinski is looking to get into the
Yeah.
MCU. I saw a photo of somebody photoshopped John Krasinski as Reed Richards, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that
Great
needs to
fan
fucking
casting.
happen. I'm like,
Yeah.
that needs to fucking
Great fan
happen.
casting.
I told you guys offline that that's just gonna that's just one of those things I'm not gonna be able to like separate with The Office. I'm too deep in that. But I think Matt, to your point, it's easy to get behind a guy that already has this lovable character about him, and like people like The Office, people like A Quiet Place. So you hire an actor that people are not.
Yeah.
People are gonna be rooting for John Krasinski. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, people they're trying to make the Fantastic Four has never been done well, and they're trying to like bring in the way that Kevin Feige described them in the presentation, like they are the first Marvel family, like they are putting a lot of effort into making them. And I think
Yeah.
Reed Richards has been the leader of Avengers groups or like high level superhero groups in the past, so it only seems right.
Yeah, I'm curious, just with like the social implications in the world that we live in now, if there's a female, that could be a leader of the group. Is there someone that you guys think could potentially be appropriate? Because like what comes to my head is, I know they're making Ironheart, Shuri at some point. I don't know if I don't know a whole ton about them, but I know that those have been two names that have been going around a lot. So is there anyone who's a female potentially that you think could lead the Avengers?
See, I think there's two people. Two people. One of them I do not agree with at all. One of them I could see. So the first one that I don't agree with is I think Captain Marvel, right?
Mm.
So I think she has that ability in the comics. She's led the Avengers before.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think Brie Larson in the movie itself. I don't mind Brie Larson as Captain Marvel,
Yeah.
truthfully. I just didn't really like the movie that much, and I think there's just not a lot of fan support for her leading it. Now,
Yeah.
somebody that like I said, I teased before that I could see leading the Avengers would be like a Captain Carter, right?
Mm.
Super
Oh
soldiered up
shit,
from the What
Captain
If
Carter,
series.
that'd be
So
fire.
seeing her coming in and as actual live action from that spot, right, would
Yeah.
make sense. You know what I'm saying? And I think it brings that similar Captain America vibe where you look to that individual for really like that moral compass, and just knows the right thing to say at the right time. And yeah,
There's
that could be one.
there's that's a yeah that I completely agree with your take. I'm not even gonna like jump in there, but go back. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because the more I think about it, like we haven't really gotten enough of the female superheroes that have like been
Mm-hmm.
in a standalone role. A lot of the ones that come to mind have been in supporting roles. I was
Hmm.
thinking like, oh, Monica Rambeau could be one, but I'm like, oh, but Monica Rambeau is supporting Captain Marvel in her next
But
film. She's not getting her
Monica
own thing.
Rambeau has led the Avengers before in the comics, so it is possible. And Corey, you
That is
said
true.
that,
Mm-hmm.
so that
So it
yeah,
could happen. Wanda is kind of like a pseudo villain now. She's kind of like in a gray
yeah,
area, so I don't think like she would lead the Avengers. Hope as in like the Wasp.
yeah.
Um,
She's
until she
she's
like
done
gets
it.
a until she gets a
Yeah.
bigger role. I don't know if they'd like be willing to put her. Sue Storm,
Well,
maybe. I mean,
that's what I was gonna ask you.
speaking of the Fantastic Four,
Um,
so
well, does Disney own X-Men or no? Because they because
Yeah.
they
because
do
they just
now.
bought,
They
right?
do
Yeah,
now.
it was Fox 25, right? So
Mhm.
what about like? Because I was thinking, I think Rogue, or was it Rogue who at one point?
Rogue, Jean Grey,
Yeah.
Storm. You got a lot there.
Yeah, see, this is my thing though when it comes to the X-Men aspect, right? Like there's always been this divide,
Mm-hmm.
right, between like the Avengers and the X-Men, and it really goes back
Yeah,
to the
it's true.
story of really what the X-Men have always dealt with, right? Like a lot of these
Well,
Avengers aren't mutants, right? They like somehow got their powers, but they started as
yeah,
humans, right? Or they built their power, whatever it might be. So the whole resentment that X-Men have a
yeah,
lot of times is towards people that aren't mutants, and the resentment that they get are because they are mutants, right? So a lot of times in the comics too, especially like an example, Secret Wars, when a lot of the villains and heroes got brought to the planet, what had happened was the Avengers and X-Men actually didn't team up. They were completely separate.
Mm.
So it was kind of like the villains, the Avengers, the X-Men, and there was kind of Magneto on his own
yeah,
island, who a lot of the story was brought around because he could no one knew where he could have gone, right? Like he didn't really want to be a bad guy within this
yeah.
storyline, but he fit towards a villain, and he could obviously fit towards the X-Men. And it's just
Mm.
It's an interesting way, and that's why I can't wait for
You just
X-Men to finally
opened
come
up
in.
something in my head. I don't know if it's completely off basis, but are we looking at this the wrong way? We're thinking about who's gonna lead the Avengers, but is it maybe this team is building up for X-Men? Like all this stuff is coming together
Mm.
so that we end up with the X-Men in the end? Is that possible?
Um,
Mm.
maybe we're just not even gonna get
That's what I'm
Avengers
saying.
ever
Yeah.
again.
Yeah,
Like if
maybe.
you think about it, there's so many different types of teams that they've
Yeah.
had throughout the
Yeah.
history, and like they've done the Avengers thing, and maybe there's just like there's combos, right? A lot of just like the different small team
Yeah.
combos that go on that eventually like it leads to a bigger
Yeah.
movie, but it might not be an Avengers
Right.
movie. It might just be like a Secret
B- b-
Wars, right? Or
Well,
something
because
like
what was
that.
so charming about the Avengers in the beginning is, well, to us who didn't, people who didn't watch the cartoon or the comics or whatever, is like, oh, this is this cool superhero team. Like you always heard about the Justice League, the Justice League, the
Mm,
Justice League, and then the
mhm,
Avengers kind of took
mhm,
over. So it's like, why couldn't they highlight one of these other teams that have been in the Marvel Cinematic
mhm,
Universe, and we fall in love with that team? You know,
mhm,
because to your point, it's like the
mhm,
Avengers has been done. So what are we gonna call this? Avengers 2.0, Avengers Gray. You know, so
mhm. Yeah, like we don't want to go
Yeah,
the
I mean,
Fast and the Furious
yeah,
route, and we just end up at like Fast and the Furious
I
10.
mean, yeah,
or
you
something.
guys make a
yeah,
good point thinking about that because the Fantastic Four, like, they're just kind of a four. They've been
mm-hmm.
their own group, but they've expanded to like the Future
Yeah,
Foundation. Like, Spider-Man used to be a part of
right.
them. So, like, we might get to a point where like it's less about an Avengers team and more about like a series of like little strike
Mm-hmm.
teams that are just kind of like doing their own
Yeah,
thing.
Mhm,
I still think because the name Avengers brings in so many people and it's been such an iconic
mhm,
brand for a
yeah,
while, like it'll still exist. But I
that would be
think
cool
we're,
though.
to your points, we're moving more towards a point of like there's going to be little pockets of little teams that fans can
Matt,
identify
that's
with.
a really good point
mhm,
too because like with the Guardians team, like that was such a success, and people really gravitated towards that. And you know who's this? It's like it doesn't really
mhm.
matter necessarily what the team is or what it is. It's maybe the Avengers is kind of almost like Space Jam. It happens every 10 years, you know, like or something like that. It's like
Mhm.
there's that just cultural moment where it's like, all right, oh shoot, did you guys hear that? They're potentially making another Avengers, and it's like we do get Avengers 5, 6, 7, but it's not. They're not as willy nilly with it as they have been in the past. It's kind of like saved for these special, iconic movie moments.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it though, too, it takes like we were so spoiled towards the end there with just getting Avengers movies so
Yeah,
often,
yeah,
but like
dude.
especially again going back to like the development and the build up that we're in, because ultimately it's phase 4, but it's phase 1 of this new
Yeah,
saga, right? Like we in theory shouldn't be getting a movie like that for 4 or 5 years,
longer,
right?
Yeah.
dude.
Just like the
Yeah,
original Avengers, right? And if you look at the timeline and what they've already announced and what they haven't, like you're not gonna get one of those type of movies for at least like four
that's
to
what I'm.
five
Yeah,
years from
and I think that's
today. You know what I'm
appropriate.
Yeah, I don't even
saying?
think they've
So,
announced any of them. I think a lot of them
so
have been like solo
Yeah.
films, which is good.
yeah.
What I
So,
will say with that
so.
is just about the scheduling is who knows because of the whole COVID thing. Everything's delayed, everything's behind.
Mhm.
Mm.
But they're definitely going to be sneaking things in. Like Loki, we didn't know that that was going to be like a 2 part thing. So there's definitely some projects that they're
Yeah.
keeping hidden. And you know, as we just saw with Star Wars, there's who's to know what the ending of these things will be. Like they're going to use different characters and
Mhm.
different art, and so there's no telling where this thing is heading or where it's going. But I can
Yeah.
say, guys, thank you. This has been very like Marvel therapy for me. Before we started this, I was kind of like, dude, Marvel, give me something, give me something. But I think you guys are right. You know, at the end of the day, you know that you can trust Marvel. You know that these
Yeah.
individuals are gonna be good. So just enjoy the ride. You know, they're gonna start whoring out, you know, celebrities, and they're doing all the big names. You know, like I can't even think of who's a big name right now. Like honestly, you might see.
When's Brad
Yeah,
Pitt coming?
exactly, dude.
When's Brad Pitt
Exactly,
No,
coming? When's Leo
exactly.
coming? Well, I need Leonardo DiCaprio in a superhero role, or
no,
honestly, I need Leo in a big
Dude,
bad role. I need him to
oh,
be
dude,
somebody that
Christian,
Captain
dude,
America.
we're
No, you
dude
should.
getting Christian Bale as a villain for the fucking Thor movie is gonna be
What
insane.
what if Leonardo DiCaprio got cast? Who you casting him
Ooh,
as?
this
Let's
isn't.
review.
This is a good one. This isn't a Marvel character, but I would like to see him play Captain Planet. You guys remember Captain Planet with the
Oh my
rings?
fucking god! I
Mm.
wanted Don Cheadle needs to reprise his role as
Hey,
Captain Planet.
listen, Leonardo DiCaprio is a big
That's what I'm saying.
environmentalist. There's a big chance that he could
That's what I'm
actually do
saying,
that.
dude.
Don't
What
sleep.
about you guys? What if you could see Leonardo play someone or be in it? What would you want to see?
I want to see him be Adam Warlock in the MCU.
Oh, I thought
Ooh.
they had The Rock, right?
Only, only, only.
No, no,
No, no, no.
You're thinking Adam from
Yeah,
the
you're thinking Black
Ah,
Shazam.
thank
Adam
you.
Black
from
Adam.
yeah. I'm talking Adam
Okay.
Warlock, basically Jesus Christ of the MCU, because only Tom Brady or Leonardo DiCaprio could do that
That-
role, and
Oh
Tom
my
Brady is not
fucking
an
that's
actor.
so
god,
So.
that's
funny.
hilarious. I'm excited to see Adam Warlock. I completely forgot they teased him in Guardians
Mm.
too.
What about you, Matt?
Mm.
What if Leonardo was in the
Dude, I don't
MCU?
know, man. Fuck, dude. I want who do I want Leonardo to play? Shit. That's a tough. So I can't think of anybody
Well,
off
all
the
right.
top of
Well,
my
you
head.
want to be a good guy or bad guy?
I want him to be nobody. To be honest, I don't want him in Marvel.
Okay. All right. Well, now you know how I feel about John Krasinski. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching the show today. Comment down below. Corey, thank you so much for being here, bro. You had great chemistry with us. Your vibe. Can't wait to have you back, man.
Fantastic takes.
Absolutely.
Can't wait to do that Shang-Chi review next week
Oh, bro.
Oh,
in the parking lot. First
Yeah.
reaction.
live
Yeah,
reaction,
man.
straight
Definitely.
out of there.
That's gonna be lit. You got
Alright.
anything going on? Yeah.
Me in the interim, nothing. Probably just watching
Yep.
Shang-Chi hype
Yeah.
videos for about a week because we're back there.
All right. All right, man. Corey, you can come back whenever you feel like. Thank you for watching, everyone. Corey, you're the man. Matt, thank you for your takes as always. You the boss.
No problem.
Take care, everyone. Have a
Thank
good
you
night.
so much.
Peace.
Sky.